This is not a podcast for comfort. It's a podcast for clarity. In a culture flooded with noise, dangerous narratives, and emotional uncertainty, this space exists to examine what actually matters and what actually works. Here we question power itself, belief systems, and the assumptions most people inherit without inspection. Most people accept instead of dissect. This podcast is about correcting that. Welcome. Bienvenue. Welcome. Marhaban. Bienvenidos to the Magnificent Ones podcast. Take a deep breath. If you just did that, that means you just filled yourself with life. If you're plagued by depression, anxiety, loss, just know that there's a point to it all. This is the journey, and the journey is not the destination. Your depression is your mind trying to sort it out, which means you're on your way. Your anxiety is a thing that you fear, and you're trying to figure it out. The thing about fear is, once you confront it, it no longer becomes fear, because you know what it is. Fear is the unknown. Fear is the thing that has not happened. It is in your mind. Loss is simply victory in disguise, because we have lessons that we must learn in this life. We go through our day-to-day and bad things happen. And maybe we think, why does it always happen to us? But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't only happen to us. It happens to everyone. We can either have that mindset that, why me? Why does this only happen to me? We all have the same thing. We just have it in a different state or form, however you want to phrase it. I came to the understanding that what I pray for, what I ask for, I don't really know what it is that I'm asking or praying for. Because when I asked for strength, in my mind, I automatically envisioned that, oh my goodness, I just prayed for strength. That means I'm going to be able to lift more. I'm going to run faster. I can handle more stress. That's what I thought that I was really praying for. And those are results. Those are not the process. The process to become stronger, the thing that I prayed for, I couldn't prepare for that. The process that made me the person that I am right now, I had to live it. And when I lived it, it was horrible. It was agonizing. It was depression. It was anxiety. And it was loss. When I prayed for wealth, in my mind and in my heart, I thought I was praying that my savings account would get bigger. My stock portfolio would just keep increasing. I thought that it meant that everything that I already had would simply just multiply into more. I didn't know that there was a price attached to the thing that I was asking for. They say faith without works. There was sacrifices that needed to be made that I didn't know at the time that I needed to do, because I felt that, my sacrifice was simply just me putting money aside from my paycheck, or me using my birthday money to invest in something. I thought that was the sacrifice. I thought the sacrifice was me working longer hours. I thought that was sacrifice. And I thought that was, the thing that was going to lead me to being wealthy one day. Boy, was I far, far, far from the mark, which resulted in me having anxiety and learning what anxiety really was, because I didn't know what I was praying for, what it entailed, I should say. because that was the process and not the result of what I was praying for. When I prayed that I wanted to be a person that loved unconditionally and a person that was patient and a person that was understanding and a patient person that was kind, never would I thought that I would be challenged. Never did I think that I would ever reach a point in which I could be so angry. I did not know that me asking to be more loving meant that I would be confronted with hateful situations or that I'd be confronted with loss and not wanting to love because I was afraid that if I loved something that I would lose it. That was again the process and not the destination. I learned that it's all a part of the process of this journey, and I've learned to embrace it. You see, 2016 taught me all of these things, and it's crazy to think that 2016 was almost 10 years ago. I remember it like it was any other day, but this day in particular was fresh in my mind, and it was so perfect, the perfect of all perfect days. I woke up, the weather was perfect in Florida, which it never is. It's either humid or hot or both. And I remember driving and I let my windows down and I was just taking in the scenery of where I lived. And I was driving by the lake and I thought to myself, this is so beautiful. How amazing is it that I get to live in such a beautiful place, surrounded by nature? And I could be having the most stressful day, and there's about a mile stretch before I get home that once I hit that mile stretch, if it's nighttime, I can see the moon reflecting on the lake, and it's so calming. And if I had a stressful day, by the time I get home, that stress melted away. And if it's the daytime, just the breeze off of the lake and how calm the water is, it makes me feel centered. And this day was just that. It was reverse. I started my day being centered. My day started off being perfect. And I remember going to class and I remember it was about time for finals. And I thought to myself, I crushed everything today. I knew that I probably had perfect on every exam that I did. I felt it because I prepared for it. And whenever I prepared for something, it was almost as if there was a guarantee that the outcome would always be what I desired. And so I left school with this emotional high, just knowing that I did my best, I worked my butt off, and now I can finally relax. And I decided to stop at Subway on my way home. And it was ironic that I ran to one of my really, really good friends at Subway because I just didn't expect to see them, at that particular Subway because it was out of their neck of the woods. And we talked and we were just saying, hey, you know what? You just finished your finals. I just finished my finals. Let's grab a drink tomorrow. Let's get something to eat, whatever. Let's just do something relaxing and fun. Cigars, something. And I said, of course, let's do it. And that felt good. It felt like the perfect way to end a stressful day with a calming conversation with a really, really amazing friend, amazing human being. And that was 2016. I remember going home and everything felt amazing. I was telling my wife that, man, I ran into, my friend and we're gonna go out tomorrow and whatnot. And she's, excited because I hadn't been hanging out with people a whole lot. And she was telling me that I needed to go hang out again and become more social. The very next day I remembered that I left my laptop in the school library. So I pick up my laptop and I remembered, just I like my phone was vibrating, but I didn't want to talk to anyone. And it was just an absurd amount of phone calls and text messages. I finally decided to respond, and everyone's asking me if I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, about what? And it turns out my friend was murdered that same night. And I remember feeling heavy. I remember wanting to cry and the tears wouldn't come out. I remember my heart just hurting. And I remember holding my chest, reading all those text messages, and not knowing what to do other than just wanting to go home and close myself off from everyone and everything to just process what I had just heard. That loss hit hard because prior to that, I hadn't lost anyone in my life, mhm, not since I was a child. So that pain felt so much, so much more deep because it felt like the first loss I ever had in my life. And that same day, as I'm going home, and it's around the election time as well, the drive was just so dreadful. It felt like an eternity to get home. For the first time, when I hit that mile stretch, the pain was still there. The sadness was still there. All the things that I was hoping that this mile stretch would give me, the relief, it never came. When I got home, I thought, you know what? Let me check my portfolio. Like just a little bit of good news, seeing the growth would do something for me, mentally. Like I didn't lose something. Like I felt that would give me a an emotional boost to see that at least something else was going right. And I started to count my blessings that I know I did well on my finals. I know I smashed it. And I know financially I'm doing well. My portfolio was doing well the day before, and I have so much to be grateful for. And though this loss is devastating, I still have a lot to be thankful for. When I looked at my portfolio and I saw that I had lost like $12,000. And that was like a kick in the cojones. It was like, man, the thing that I was hoping that was gonna give me a boost, another thing that was gonna give me a boost, didn't give me that emotional boost that I was hoping for. And so I had to try to process it. And still, I didn't cry. I almost felt like I wasn't human because I didn't cry. And that made me frustrated as well because I wanted to, but the tears wouldn't come. I remember the anger that I was holding on to in that moment and how powerless I felt. And I always told myself I'd never be that way. But it turns out I am that way because I'm human. That same day, I was supposed to go to the uh, the doctor with my wife, and we were going to see how our baby was progressing. She was pregnant at the time, and when we went, they could no longer hear a heartbeat. And I remember the doctor just trying to be optimistic and be trying to be as positive as can be and saying, "Hey, we'll try this and we'll try that. And these things happen and we'll try something else." Until the final conclusion was that we had a miscarriage. And that was it. That was the thing that really, really broke me that day. And that day, I lost a friend. I lost money. And I continued losing money, and I didn't realize that throughout the day I was losing everything that I had built up in that same day. And then I lost what was supposed to be my firstborn child. And I remember thinking that, man, all the things that I was working towards, all the investments that I'd made were going to be for this child. This child was going to have more than enough. This child was going to not have to worry about so many things. But in the end, what I prayed for, what I thought that I was praying for, was just a part of the process. A process to teach me love. And because I lost so much in one day, and it took me a while to process all those emotions, if I could endure all of those things in one day, it taught me that nothing on this planet is impossible. It made me, it forced me to love deeply. It forced me to understand what wealth was, and that wealth isn't the money that's in your bank account. Wealth is what's in the heart. Because a person that's wealthy, even if you took away every single thing that they had, they could do it all again and get it all back and then some. A rich person cannot do that. A wealthy person can do that over and over and over and over again. Each time better, each time faster. And so I no longer held on to money. I no longer had a fear of losing money because I lost it all. And when it came to understanding what love was, logically it doesn't make sense that human beings grieve something that never came to be. And think about it. I never spent time with this child. I never held this child. And yet, it still broke my heart. Because I projected a reality that didn't exist. I thought about the future, but I didn't enjoy the now. Sometimes we live so far into the future that we forget about the right now. Now I have to think about the right now. Now I don't have to worry about the fear of losing anything because I've learned that I'm not in control of anything. I'm not in control of how much time I have on this earth. I'm not in control over how much money I have because at the end of the day, the economy can crash and I could lose it all. There are no guarantees except for death and taxes. But I also learned the value of a true friend. I also learned the importance of being present with those you love. I learned to see the beauty in all things, in the simple things, in the conversations that I have day to day. I think there's this beauty in humanity that if we just looked into the eyes of another human being, we would see how vulnerable we all really are. And that we all crave the same things, that we all want to be loved, and that we all want to be happy. And we're all just figuring it out. We're all on this giant rock trying to figure it out. And no one has all the answers. And each day, we get closer and closer to the day that we are no more. And that's powerful. There's a strength in that as well. Of course, we all want to be wealthy, we want to have nice things. We all want to know that the journey it's not going to be hard, but it is hard. We all want to know that we're going to have $1 billion. But what are the odds of us having $1 billion? We all want to say that we want love. But then when you get love, you forget that you have it because love was just the journey and not the destination. Because once you have the thing that it is that you prayed for, the thing that you longed for, it's just the thing that you check off on the list. Oh, I'm married. I have kids. That's it. I work. And you forget to say the I love yous. You forget to say the thank yous. You forget to just be. You forget to just take time to just talk, watch a TV show, go for a walk. And all of that gets lost in the grandioseness of our goals and what society tells us that we need to chase. And we get lost in keeping up with the Joneses. That we forget to appreciate what we have. And then we say, I want to love like that one. Not realizing how much work it took to get that kind of love. Love is work. Love is never easy. Love is your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. But at the end of the day, only you can make this life truly virtuous. Only you can make this life precious. We all have a choice to make at the end of the day. And that choice is, are we going to be all that we can be? Are we going to learn from the pain? Or are we going to choose to overcome? I want to leave you with this. You are strong, and if you've ever overcame depression, anxiety, or loss, even if you had the most supportive people in your corner, you still had to make a choice to overcome those things. So pat yourself on the back. And even if you didn't have support in your corner and you still managed to overcome these things, pat yourself on the back because you made the choice to overcome. No one knows what another human being is going through. We don't. We think we do, but we don't. And to my friends out there that are hurting, that are experiencing depression, that feel that they're alone and that they don't have anyone or that the world is against them, you're still amazing. You're still great. And you're just figuring it out. You are the best that you can be right now. And you're still growing. And this is a part of the process. And the process is not the destination. So it's okay to not be the strongest person around right now. It's okay to not have the nicest things right now. It's okay that you let your beard grow out. It's okay that you're in the basement right now figuring it out. Because it's exactly what it is. You're figuring it out. I once saw something that Jim Carrey said that I held on to. And he said, depress simply means deep rest. Your mind is overloaded, overcrowded, and it just needs some rest. And it's all just temporary. And even if it takes you 5 years to overcome it, you still have your whole life ahead of you. So it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to take the time to be away from all the noise and all the naysayers. Be you and take the time to heal. Because if you don't take the time to heal, you're going to take the time to hurt. And healing and hurting are two separate things. When you're hurting, you can sometimes hurt others in the process. When you're healing, you can touch others in the process. Learn who you are. And learn that who you are isn't perfect, and nobody is. And anyone who says otherwise, they're not being honest with themselves. Because no one has it all together. Some people may be good at giving advice, but they're not good at listening to their own advice. Some people may be great with finances, but they're bad with communication. So there is no perfect human being. And your journey right now, the thing that you're enduring, that's okay. It's okay. Today was one of those days where I saw so many people being unhappy. And I could have an emotional reaction and be mean or crude. Or I could just say that they're people just trying to figure it out too. And just like they seem angry on the outside, when I looked into their eyes, I could see the sadness behind their eyes. And that alone told me that it's okay for them to be not okay. And it's also okay for me to be patient and be loving. Because we only have this one life that we know of. And all we have is each other. So thank you for tuning in And if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe for more. It's 4:58 in the morning. The world is not yet awake enough to judge you. The air is cold. The streetlights hum faintly. There's something honest about that hour. Something stripped of performance. I'm 17 years old. Wrestler, weightlifter, volunteer 3 days a week, straight A student. The disciplined one. The one adults point to as proof that hard work pays off. I lace my shoes in the dark and step outside, and I begin to run. 1 step, 2 steps, 8 feet, and I stop. Not because I'm injured, not because I'm winded, not because I physically can't continue. I stop because something inside of me refuses. I don't want to do this. That's a sentence that doesn't arrive emotionally. It arrives plainly. And in that moment, the body does not want to obey the will. And now, if you're a high performer, I need you to listen carefully, because you know this moment. You may not have been 17. You may not have been running, but you have felt that subtle hesitation, that quiet resistance, that moment where the machine doesn't respond the way it used to. And because you are who you are, you interpreted that as weakness. You told yourself to refocus, recommit, get sharper, get disciplined again. High performers don't stop 8 feet in. That's the myth. But here's the truth we rarely speak out loud. The body always keeps score. If you are a leader, if you are the one others depend on, if you are the competent one, that's the responsibility that it just seems to find you automatically, then this isn't just theoretical, it's a diagnostic. Because strength attracts weight. And if you're not intentional, weight accumulates faster than awareness. Years later, I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room is quiet. My phone is face down. It's past midnight. I have to be up early. My chest feels tight. Not panic, not sharp pain, just pressure. Like I'm bracing for something that hasn't happened yet. Now I replay the conversations, the decisions, future scenarios, responsibilities that aren't even due yet. My body is exhausted. My mind is not. I reach for melatonin. And that small act unsettles me more than I expect. Because somewhere in my identity, it's the belief that I should be able to regulate myself, that discipline should extend even further to sleep. But my body does not care about your mythology. At 17, I believed motion equaled virtue. 5 a.m. runs, 2 days a week, straight A student, volunteering. I believed if I kept moving forward, I would be safe from mediocrity, safe from irrelevance, safe from uncertainty. But safety built on a constant output is fragile. The morning, 8 feet into the dark wasn't laziness, it was a boundary. I just didn't have enough language for it. So I overrode it, and I kept building. The arenas change. Now it's leadership. 14 years inside an institution, training people, mentoring, being the steady one, being the one people called years later to say changed their lives. Capability attracts weight. And if you are capable, more weight arrives. Layer ambition on top of that, the desire to build something meaningful, to integrate thinkers, to create depth instead of noise, to matter. From the outside, that looks impressive. From the inside, something else begins to happen. A few months ago, I started skipping the gym. Not once, not as a rest week, but repeatedly. For someone who built his identity around strength, strong mind, strong body, that unsettled me. I'd wake up and feel resistance, not laziness, not apathy, just something quiet. Like my system was saying, not today. And instead of interpreting that as information, I felt shame. Because if strength is who you are, what does hesitation mean? Here's what it means. It means the organism you inhabit has limits, and no amount of ambition rewrites biology. Burnout is not dramatic collapse. It's a quiet, recalibration, head tension that lingers, chest tightness, and that doesn't fully release, illness that revisits more often than it used to, sleep that fragments. The nervous system does not distinguish perfectly between a physical threat and sustained psychological strain. It measures intensity, it measures duration, it measures cost. And when cost exceeds capacity, it intervenes. And what that intervention looks like, we don't get to choose. So maybe it is the skipping the gym. Maybe it is taking a nap during the day to reset. Recently, I was sitting at my desk, and my mind, mid-afternoon, just kind of just slowly going through emails, calendar full. My deliverables are clear. And from the outside, everything looked functional. Inside my chest, felt tight again, not because of one task, because of maintenance, maintaining competence, maintaining composure, maintaining identity. And in that moment, I remembered being 17. I remembered 8 feet. I remember that distinctively. The body refusing blind obedience. Burnout is not about workload alone. It's about identity fused with, too tightly to performance. When your worth is entangled with output, every slowdown feels existential. If I am not advancing, I am dissolving. If I am not strong, I am failing. High performers rarely burn out because they hate what they do. They burn out because they never stop doing it. They never release responsibility mentally. They rehearse conversations. They anticipate outcomes, carry invisible weight for too long. After the hours of whatever the interaction was or whatever the task was is so long gone. And you're not designed to be an indefinite override. You're designed for rhythm, exertion and recovery, responsibility and release, leadership and restoration. And when rhythm disappears, erosions begin, and erosions is dangerous because it looks like functional from the outside. You still perform, you still produce, but internally you are braced. Let me speak quietly to leaders. If your head has been tight lately, if your chest feels compressed, if sleep is lighter, if getting sick, if you're getting sick more often, if the gym feels like another obligation instead of refuge, that's not weakness, that's information. The most dangerous thing high performers can do is ignore information because it contradicts identity. So you start saying to yourself, if I acknowledge that I'm not okay, that means that who I am is no longer who I am. And to you, that may be the destruction of an entire world. And that world is your world. And the thing is, if it's your world, you can change what your world is. We have mistaken endurance for wisdom. That's what we do, right? We think that because we know things, it sometimes makes us invulnerable to other things. It means that we're immune from certain consequences because we have wisdom, because we have strength. We have mistaken exhaustion for virtue. Oh, I worked hard. That's why I'm tired. We've mistaken self-domination for mastery, and that's not the same thing. Having willpower to endure something or to go through something, yes, that's still not mastery. That's just endurance. And endurance for endurance sake, meaning you just continuously push forward, that does nothing for you in the long run other than leads you to an early grave or isolation in the long run. And we've built cultures that quietly reward internal erosion, but you cannot permanently negotiate with biology. You get older. You do. You are finite. Your nervous system is finite. Your life is finite. Your body is finite. That is unsettling. But it's also steadying, because burnout is not the body breaking. It's the body protecting. The chest tightens to slow you down. The fatigue that you feel when your fatigue rises, it's to conserve you, to tell you, slow down. We need to hold something back for ourselves. Resistance appears so that you can, recalibrate. Here your body is saying and your mind is saying, let's not do this right now, because this thing right here needs this vessel that holds our brain. It needs time to process everything. Let's not add more weight. Let's not add more burden to the brain. The brain is saying, please slow down. We've had all these things going on and we have not processed them yet. The chest tightens to slow you down, as I've said. And so the chest tightening leads me to this question. And the question is not, how do I push through? The question is, what is it costing me? At 17, I thought stopping meant failure. Now I understand it meant awareness. 8 feet into the dark is not weakness. It's the first honest confrontation with my own personal reality. So what's your 8 feet in? Your confrontation with your reality. For years, I believed that strength meant pushing past limits. I mean, that's like every anime as a 90s kid. If you watch anime, that's what it teaches you. Pushing through. I have no limits. Plus ultra. All of those fun terms. Ultra instinct, for all the anime, fans out there, talking to my millennials and my Gen Zs out there. I believe discipline could override biology. I really have. I believe that relentless motion was proof of my character. And I was wrong about that. Domination of self isn't mastery, it's misalignment. That is the reality that I currently am facing. The body is not an obstacle to overcome. You don't need to overcome yourself in certain situations. It's the boundary that keeps ambitions from turning into self-destruction. Now, from this point forward, if I build, it will be in rhythm, personally. If I lead, it will be from awareness. If I pursue ambition, It will not come at the expense of the organisms that sustains it, meaning that I will protect my body and my mind. If I pursue ambition, it will not come at the expense of what my mental peace is. Now, if you're a leader, hear this clearly. Please, you do not have to bleed internally to justify your competence. I don't know where this is going directly. You do not have to remain perpetually braced to prove your value. You do not have to override everyday signal your body sends to maintain your image. 8 feet into the dark is not the end of the run. It's the first step in an honest decision. And if you're brave enough to stand there, not react, not override, not perform, but evaluate, then you're not weak. You're finally awake. Everyone has their own 8 feet in the dark. Yeah, there's a place every person walks through at some point in life, a place without light, without certainty, without clear direction. I call that place 8 feet in the dark. 8 feet is not far. It's not a lifetime. It's not an endless road. It's a short distance. But when we're in a place where there's no light, even 8 feet can feel impossible. When you cannot support yourself, you can't see where your next step is going. Even a small stretch becomes frightening. Even a small distance, feels like a void. 8 feet in the dark is where clarity disappears. It's where you lose the map you thought you had. It's the moment when the job no longer feels secure, when the relationship no longer feels certain, when your purpose feels distant, when your spirit feels tired, when the future is no longer obvious. Some people find their 8 feet in financial hardship. Others find it in loneliness. Some meet it in failure. Some meet it in grief. Some meet it in doubt. Some meet it when the version of themselves they believed in begins to fall apart. But when everyone has an 8 feet in the dark, no one escapes it. The strange thing about 8 feet in the dark is that from the outside, it does not always look like darkness. A man can be successful and still be walking through it. A woman can be smiling and still be walking through it. A leader can still be admired and still be walking through it. A family can look whole and still be walking through it. Because 8 feet in the dark is not about appearance. It's about awareness. 8 feet in the dark is the distance between who you are and who you must become. And most people never stop long enough to ask themselves a simple question. Do you even know what your 8 feet in the dark is? Many people are walking blind without realizing it. They feel frustration, but cannot name the source. They feel restlessness, but cannot explain it. They feel pressure, but cannot define it. They sense the darkness, but they never measure the distance. Awareness is the first light. The moment you name your 8 feet in the dark is the moment the darkness begins to lose power.
When you can say, this is where I am uncertain, or this is where I am afraid, or this is where I am stuck, you've already begun to move forward. Because darkness is strongest when it's undefined. 8 feet in the dark is not where you go to destroy that version of yourself. It's where you go to reveal the real you that's not okay, the real you that doesn't truly know who you are, the real you that is struggling to keep it together. It shows you your fears. It shows you your habits. It shows you your weaknesses. It shows you what you want to avoid. It shows you what you pretend to not see. And if you walk carefully, it also shows you your strength. Most people wait for someone else to bring them to light. They wait for better circumstances. They wait for permission. They wait for motivation. They wait for confidence. But the truth is, no one walks your 8 feet in the dark except you. No one can see it exactly the way you see it. No one can define it exactly the way you must define it. And no one can walk it for you. Some people turn around before they reach the end. They go back to what is familiar, even if it's limiting. Familiar discomfort feels safer than unknown growth. But the ones who change their lives, the ones who become stronger, clearer, wiser, are the ones who keep moving forward even when the light is not yet visible. Because somewhere past those 8 feet is understanding. Somewhere past those 8 feet is growth. Somewhere past those 8 feet is a clearer version of yourself. Enlightenment is not a flash of light from the sky. It's what happens after you have walked through your 8 feet in the dark and realize the darkness did not stop you. Awareness is not comfort. Awareness is seeing clearly what you must change. So the real question is not whether darkness exists. The real question is this: do you know where your 8 feet in the dark begins? And maybe, even more important, what are you doing about your 8 feet in the dark? Because the distance is short, but the transformation on the other side can last a lifetime. Thank you for tuning in to the Magnificent Ones podcast. This episode was honest. This episode was for every performer out there that's been performing not just the job, but performing the character of the role they've been playing. May that stick with you.
Magnificent. Magnificent. Magnificent.
Success is selfless. And when you think about it, your success isn't for you. Your success is for everyone else. And that's a hard concept to wrap your head around. I mean, if you're a doctor, you started out and you went to medical school and then you worked and then you did your residency. And this entire time, you're not being paid for your endeavors. And people are benefiting from the good that you are doing, but it's not you that's inherently benefiting. You benefit after all of those things when you get paid. If you're a police officer, maybe that's what you wanted to do, right? And you're doing it for you. Maybe it's for selfish reasons at first, right? But when you're serving and you're protecting, your job and your duty is still for the benefit of everyone else. And you just happen to get something out of it. I think at its core, though, we have to really analyze what success is to us, because success has to be selfless in order for you to become more successful than you are at this current juncture. I think that there are people who, when they experience success, they try to keep it to themselves. And those people are not successful. They're just experiencing success. You have some people that they just try to keep everything a secret. They'll see that you're struggling, and they'll know why you're struggling. They'll understand why you're struggling, and they won't even lend you a word of advice. They won't tell you why it is that you're struggling. Maybe you're trying to start a new business endeavor, but they try to keep a monopoly on knowledge, not realizing that in the long run, they're really holding themselves back. I think that the people who are the most giving, and when they're learning, they share the knowledge with others. When they're growing, they share. Notice I'm not saying giving, not giving something away, but sharing. Sharing and giving are not necessarily the same thing. I can share you knowledge. By me sharing my knowledge with you, I'm teaching you how to fish, meaning that now you can fish for yourself. And now we can build each other up. You can't make something from nothing. You can only make something from something. It takes money to make more money. And mind you, if everyone in your circle is successful, everyone's eating good, as the kids say, then you guys can all build each other up. But it would be very hard if everyone tries to build each other up when no one has anything. And too many people think that they can only be successful so long as everyone else is less successful than they are. And those people, maybe they have the shiny things at the start, but in the long run, they're the ones that are empty. They're the people that may have a little bit of money, but they can never be happy. They can never be content. It's never enough for them. Enough is never enough. Because the more you get in life, sometimes the bigger the void in your heart becomes. And there are other times that you give. And when you're giving, it's almost as if you're really giving to yourself. When you're giving to others, it's like giving to yourself. It's like you're giving yourself a gift. Because that's a feeling. To know that you're doing good, to know that you're being generous or charitable, it's good for your brain. It's good for your conscience. It means you get to sleep good at night. Knowing that you're a selfish person, knowing that you're conniving, knowing that you never help those that you can help. I'm not saying handouts, I'm saying helping those that you can help. How do you get to sleep good at night or sleep well? I don't think that a sound sleep gets to be your friend. However, the person that gives freely and truly gives out of the goodness of their heart, those are the people who are really successful. Sacrifice is essential to being successful. And there are a lot of times where when you're on your journey, you realize that the success comes first and then the money comes after. And you'll have the sleepless nights and the missed birthdays and the missed dinners. I mean, I remember when I was in college and I was working 2 jobs and I was interning and not having a social life. It sucked. It did. But now I can say that it was worth it. I knew that that was only a season. It wasn't going to be forever, but it was worth it. And the lessons that I got out of that experience, I get to share them with you now. In that, if you're a true entrepreneur, that means that you only get to have delayed gratification. If you're truly great entrepreneur, a truly successful entrepreneur, it means that you get to eat last. You work the longest hours at first when you're starting out. You miss the football games, soccer games, the dance recitals, the swim meets. You miss those things at first. Everyone that works for you, they get a paycheck every week. And maybe for you, you don't get to enjoy a paycheck for 5 years until things really, really take off. So your success, as I was saying earlier, is for everyone else because you're starting out. You don't get to go on the vacations. You don't get to go to the south of France. You don't get to go to Milan. But the people who work for you, they get to do those things. At first, you learn that delayed gratification is your best friend. It makes you a better person, a stronger person. And there's nothing wrong with foregoing an immediate reward for everlasting success. There's a saying that you lead by example. If you are a hard worker, but also working with intention and purpose, that means you can hold everyone else to that standard. You'll garner far more respect. You'll garner the adoration of your team and people who work for you or work underneath you to want to strive to be like you because you are their example for what is right and what is just. And when you take the selfless approach, your success, it it creates sustainability and growth in your business. And that's very different from the person that is extremely selfish because they're so short-sighted and they take a self-centered approach and that leads to stagnation. So they never grow. Being a generous leader, that's when you're giving, you're really giving in the form of investing. You're investing in your people and that reward, maybe you get that reward 10 years, maybe how you're rewarded is not how you expect to be. Maybe it's not a financial thing. Maybe you just teach a person to be a good human being. Who knows? Your success could, positively affect your community as a whole. Maybe you're a pillar in your community because you've learned that yes, you get financially compensated for what you do. But if you're building your community up or you're building up your people, then what's to stop you from continuously growing and advancing into new ventures in life? Because your success is now spilled over into a broader body of water, if that makes sense. In that you could be the small fish in a big pond, or you could be the small fish in an ocean that learned to grow into a big fish in a big ocean. I think that positive success is that the selflessness aspect. That is, one of the pitfalls of being, a selfish, successful person is that enough is never enough. You know, there's never a time where they'll ever feel fulfilled because something is always missing. They're the ones that get burned out. They're the ones that eventually get the strained relationships, and they're the ones that have the limited growth, potential. There's so many people that they just all they ever cared about was just, "I do this now. I have to do this now. I have to do this now by any means necessary." And a lot of those people that I knew that were like that, they're not working in those fields anymore. Those careers, they're divorced and unhappy and starting life over in a way that does not in the least bit give them a sense of purpose in life. And I just want to say that there is a concept of toxic success. And to me, toxic success is when someone has to achieve something at the expense of one's well-being, relationships, or they just neglect, certain ethical standard. That's the concept of relentless pursuit at
any cost. And they chase things and they don't realize the toll that it takes on their health and their work-life balance, and how they have stress related health issues, and completely they're strained, personal connections. It's like it's non-existent, and they just think all they think about is just winning. It's not just about winning, it's always about how you win. Having a competitive mindset isn't a negative thing. I'm extremely competitive, but it's the competitiveness where you just want to cause chaos for the sake of chaos. And those people are the ones that their competitive mindset is where success is measured by, surpassing or outperforming others. And that's always at the expense of themselves, because you should want to be better for you. You should want to be more efficient, more productive for yourself as a part of your own growth and development. That's not you should compete with yourself in that way. Yesterday, for example, if you did say, yesterday I only completed 5 tasks. Today I'm going to complete 6. It's not I'm going to complete 10 more tasks than that person. It's like, what does that really do for you? It does nothing. It's creating a competition that is not bringing you any closer to accomplishing whatever it is that you're trying to. And the part of it too is that, the people who are selfish with their success, they constantly need the, validation through external, achievements, where, like, their success is seen as their primary source of self-worth and validation. And that individual may tie their entire sense of self-esteem to their accomplishments. And, this makes them constantly want recognition and validation from everyone else, when if you want recognition and validation, just be you, as opposed to people just seeing you for the things you have. The material things that you have, they aren't you. They're not the quality of who you are. A person that makes $1 million a year, that's a piece of crap. And a person that makes $1 million a year and is a good person, who do you think people are going to gravitate to? Same $1 million, but different people. The other component to that is, well, what personal values, are these people neglecting, and do they have integrity? Or do they compromise their own values and their, integrity and ethical standards? Because if they do, this is going to lead them to having, constant inner conflict and a sense of hollowness despite their external achievements. And for a brief portion of my life, like, I went through that. Like, I remember trying to just crushing and dominating everything. And that's when I had coffee for the first time too. Like, I just was like, I never needed coffee before, and I started drinking coffee and caffeine, like, heavily. And the more I would just try to just be more productive and just dominate everything, like, my health was just declining, constantly consuming caffeine. And it get to the point where, like, there was no amount of caffeine that would just make me be more productive. It just did not exist. And, there's but so many papers I could type in one day. I can only do but so much with the time that I have. I had to learn that at a painful experience, because I got sick and I didn't know why I was sick. I learned that if you don't get enough sleep, you lower your immune system. If you don't get enough sleep, then you become fatigued, you become irritable, and sometimes you're just a jerk because you're tired all the time. And it doesn't matter how much you've accomplished, because you don't even have the energy to celebrate your successes. You don't even know what your successes are, because you're just focused. You have blinders on. You're just focused on trying to get more, to do more. And that doesn't get you very far. Some of the hardest people that you'll ever meet in life, they're poor. They work themselves and they never experience any form of success. They work themselves to having heart conditions, stress-related illnesses, because they're just working hard. They're just working hard and working hard, and it never takes them from where they are. And just like that doesn't take them from where they are, it's the same with everyone else. You can be middle class and you just believe in working hard and just working hard and getting more money and doing, and again, you're still just stuck because hard work can put you into a position to be successful, but it won't necessarily make you successful because you can't be successful by yourself. You have to form connections. Hard work doesn't mean that you get to be the next Michael Jordan because you're 5'3". I don't think you're going to play ball like LeBron James. Sorry. No matter how hard you work. So hard work doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to pay off in the end. And that's a part of the lesson, is that the things that we're working hard at, maybe that's not the things we should be focusing on. And maybe that's why we're not successful. Maybe we're working hard on everything else except for the thing that's most important, which is us. The goal is, if I try to be the best version of myself and I try to work hard on myself, I will in turn be boss, manager, partner, friend, because I'm constantly working on myself. I can be successful, extremely successful, because I'm the thing that I'm working hard at. If everything else is what I'm working hard at, I'll never be successful, and neither will you. Because just because you're working hard, it doesn't mean that you're being effective. It doesn't mean that you're being efficient. So how will you ever be successful? You don't know where you're going. You don't know where your hard work leads. It won't lead you anywhere. There has to be some form of planning involved. There has to be preparation, learning how to prioritize. And maybe someone has to teach you these things. But if you're killing yourself day in and day out and wondering why you're not making any headway, it's because you're focusing on the wrong thing. Success is selfless. Surround yourself with the people who want to invest in you, first and foremost. And secondly, aim to work on yourself harder than you work on any job and harder than you work on anything else. If you make working on yourself your hardest, just your top priority, there is nothing that you can't do except beat Michael Jordan at basketball. And again, I'll repeat that one. If you work on being the best version of you, you will be the best at everything else except beat Michael Jordan at basketball. There's an expression, eagles fly alone because it's lonely at the top. The process and the journey that leads you to your destination sometimes forces you to confront many of life's ugly truths. Your mind and your heart may say, yes, I can. Yet the people that love you the most are the ones that sometimes say, no, you can't. And they plant seeds of doubt. In those moments, you sometimes learn that some people don't push you forward. They hold you back and they hold you down. Your goals aren't meant to be shared with everyone. And that's painful. Sometimes you have to keep all that you want to be and all that you wish to accomplish to yourself. Water those seeds in your mind and in your heart. Because sometimes the words of others, they're the ones that poison the soil in which you sowed your seeds. If you keep them to yourself, you can remain positive, you can remain hungry, vigilant, until your dreams eventually materialize into something, whatever that thing is that's special to you. Regardless, though, remember, it's not what I say success is. It's what you define success for yourself that really matters at the end of the day. Regardless if anything that I say may even sound remotely good, define success for yourself and live life on your own terms. You have one life to live. Be the best at it. The only person you have to compete against is yourself. If you enjoyed today's content, please like and subscribe for more. Be free.
in honest reflection, in my 20s, I was living for the future, so I didn't accept my present. I didn't live in the present, and that affected a lot of my relationships as well, because I was always thinking about 20 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, and I wasn't in the now. So in my 30s, I can honestly say that I am present, and that's a plus, in the grand scheme of everything else, because I can give myself and my energy to all the things that actually deserve them. And I know now how to distinguish between the things that aren't worthy of my time. So 30 is a very beautiful number for me. To me, it's a milestone number because if this is the worst part of my human existence, like this is supposed to be the most difficult part of my human existence, then my future is extremely bright. And all the things that I did in my 20s, they led me to this point right now. And I think that there were lessons that I couldn't possibly have understood in my 20s simply because I didn't have the life experience to do so. And now I can be humble in my thoughts that, oh, okay, well, if something isn't working out, I don't just pour my energy into trying to fix things. I will analyze the situation and go, okay, is this something that I'm even capable of fixing? Like I had this conquering spirit in my 20s. And in my 30s now, my spirit is about, okay, what is actually going on with the situation, whatever the situation is? Maybe mentally, maybe emotionally, maybe, you know, from a professional, standpoint, like what is the actual root cause of my situations? You know, um, Say that someone's upset. Am I going to just look at what's in front of me right now? Or am I going to analyze the situation and, understand that like most situations that deal with other human beings, they're nuanced. And they're multi-layered, right? So I can't just come down with a hammer, anymore. Now I have to take those things into account. So 30s, 30s, 30s. One of the biggest changes I've noticed is that I have a very silent confidence now that I didn't have before. I remember in my 20s, I would say the things that I was going to do. And it's more rewarding when I just keep it to myself and I know it's for me and not for everyone else, because in life you're always going to have haters. And the haters, sometimes we pour so much energy into drowning out the negativity that we forget to focus on the positivity, the positive things in our lives, the things that are going right. We could have one minor thing that's going wrong, and we pour all of our energy to that, right? We become hyper focused and so fixated on that one negative person or that one bad incident that happened. And now, those things don't affect me. Now is the era where the things that I was uncertain of before, those things are put in the background. And having the ability to say, you know what? I can't control what people say. I can't control how people feel. I can control my actions. I am only in control of my actions. And my best isn't for everyone else. My best is for me. That is the best thing that's ever happened in my 30s. Because for me, my best was I had to beat everyone in my 20s. I had to conquer everything in my 20s. In 30s, like, hey, take a step back. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? How is this going to affect others around you? What is going to be the impact of the decisions that you're going to make? That is 30. And 30 is just peace. The things that the turmoil and the chaos of 20, the 20s, I don't think that I'd ever want to go through that again. The peace and the serenity of 30, it's almost like a reward. But I feel as though had I not gone through the turbulent 20s, I wouldn't experience the peaceful 30s. So I'm thankful for those experiences as well. Be free.
Magnificent. Magnificent. Magnificent.
Hello, magnificent ones. It is so great to be recording another episode of the Magnificent Ones podcast. And this is more of a reflective piece, but I've learned that, our stories are a mirror, for others. And when we tell our stories, we see how much we have in common with other people that maybe we didn't realize before. So in today's episode, I wanted to explore and dissect, certain situations in our lives, such as our goals. For example, when I was transitioning from high school through college and, everyone asks you, like, what's your plans for the future? What do you hope to accomplish? I've always been an extremely goal-oriented person, a person that wanted to just achieve everything. And I've always been a planner and an executioner. So I would plan, execute, and so forth. When I was in high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and the person that I wanted to become. And my dream was that after high school, I was going to go to an amazing university and graduate, as with as many accolades as I possibly could. After which point I would join, the United States Armed Forces so that I would be an officer. And after that, transition into intelligence and have an amazing career. And after that, go into politics. So that was, my life goals in a nutshell. And the thing that grounded me in altering those choices was my son, because my son is my greatest accomplishment, or was my greatest accomplishment at that time. And I have a daughter. Now they're both my greatest accomplishments of my entire life. And they've changed my trajectory in life for the better, because I was going for the money, but now I'm going for love. And you can have both, because you can do what you love and make money. Or you could just do something for money and not love it and then be burnt out and stress and end up divorced and so forth. Long story short, I chose love, and I definitely chose correctly. But I ran into someone recently that, has known me for a very long time, and they said to me, they were like, "Man, like, why didn't you, go into intelligence? It's like the money's there," and a laundry list of things, and everything in that conversation was just about money. Money, money this, money this, money this, money this. And when I was looking at this person, I saw them as a former shell of who they were, because everything was just heavily influenced by the material world. And when I looked at them, I mean, they don't have kids. They're not in a relationship. They don't have stability. They have the stability of routine because of what they do, but they don't have stability in the sense of they have a life. And they're operating on an extreme. And the extreme is high performer with no life, but also no end goal, right? There's no end goal to what they're doing. It's kind of like the person that makes a lot of money, but just puts it in the bank and doesn't live life with their money. That's who this character was. And if this was 5 years ago, I would have been extremely offended that this person would be pushing this idea that, like, I needed all this money to be happy and so many other things. And I probably would not have been polite about it either, but because of the person that I am today, I was able to just have a meaningful discourse, and that when you have purpose and you feel fulfilled, it nothing else matters. Because my rebuttal to the money situation was this. I said, "Listen, do you have to have a teaching degree to be a person that teaches?" And the answer is no. I said that so long as you fulfill in the things that you do, that's the only thing that matters. So if I have a teaching degree, sure, I could be a teacher or what have you, right? But at the same time, if I teach someone how to tie their shoelace, I just taught someone something. So if I'm a teacher by nature, then I will just naturally teach people, and I'll be doing the thing that I love, and I don't need to be paid to do the things that I love. All things will work out in the end when you do things with purpose and intent. And if you have goals and an idea of how you're going to reach them, then it's just a matter of time before you reach your destination. Sometimes you have to go through the parts of life that suck so that you can appreciate the destination when you arrive there. Because the people who just chase the money, they have blinders on. They don't see how many bridges they're burning in the process. They don't see how many friends and relationships they've ruined along the way. But sometimes when you take the slow and steady road, you don't miss out on life. I get to be with my kids. I get to have dinner with my family every single day. I don't miss out on anything. And yes, I don't spend 24 hours with them, but most people don't spend 24 hours with their families. So what have I missed? I didn't miss my kids' first steps, their first words. I got to be a part of that, and that's beautiful. I can never get that back. I can't get this time back either. I'm getting older, they're getting older. They're going to reach a point in which they don't need me, and especially when they're older. So why not just embrace the thing that I could never get back, which is time. Time with them. These moments, these first steps, these first conversations, the first sentences, the things that I can't get back that are so valuable. That's what I chose. The thing that was most valuable is what I chose. The money has a value, which means anything that has a value, it could either diminish it or it could appreciate with time, right? But human beings, once they've reached a certain point in life, how much monetary value can they actually, accrue? So I'd rather just accrue life value in my relationships with my friends and my family. Those are the things that we take for granted. Now, Steve Jobs was one of the wealthiest human beings in human history, right? And when he was diagnosed with cancer, what could he do? He couldn't buy more time with his money. He couldn't, extend his life with his money. He couldn't repair whatever, broken relationships. He didn't have enough time to do those things because time was not on his side. The journey is just as important as the destination. We have to define what success is for us and not what other people say success is. And that's important. And to know that we have purpose and what our purpose is. It takes time to be confident in who we are. Yes, it's not an easy task. However, when other people try to put you down, you don't have to say something negative to combat their hostility or their words that were meant to, to cause harm. Kindness kills that. You can kill a person with kindness. But again, remember that you have to believe in yourself and you have to know your worth and you have to know that you have a sense of purpose. So that way, when you say something positive as a rebuttal, what can that person do? That's kind of like the whole Eminem thing where Eminem will rap about the things that is wrong with him. So what are you going to use? His words against him to win? It doesn't work that way. You have to bring the thing that the person said it was supposed to be your kryptonite and show them that it's actually your greatest weapon. So not all things that have been lost are truly lost, and not all people that we think are lost are actually lost. Some of us know exactly where we're going, and because we know where we're going and we know the destination and where it leads, if I know that regardless, as long as I'm alive and I'm working, I'm gonna make money. So what? I'm gonna chase something that I'm naturally gonna get because I'm a working, member of society. But you know what? A lot of people forget along the way their family. Next thing you know, they miss out, and they're like, "Oh, my grandma passed away, my grandpa passed away," and how much time did they spend with their grandparents? And they're like, "Oh, if only I had more time." Like that's always the thing. If only I had more time. It's not that you didn't have enough time, is what did you choose to do with your time? What was truly valuable to you? The most valuable things in life naturally are the scarcest. That's what makes them valuable. Time is your most scarce resource, your most valuable resource. What gives something value? The lack of availability of it. It's not like you can buy more time. So if that's your most precious resource, that's the thing that you have the least in abundance of. How are you going to spend it? What's it truly worth to you? Are you going to let other people dictate how you spend your time and what you do with your time and what you choose to value with your time while you lose it each and every day that you wake up? I think that so many of us makes the mistake that time is something that we have so much of it. It's like if you're 15, you think you have forever, but then you blink and you're 30. And if you're 50, then you're like, man, when I'm 80, I'm old. But then you blink and now you're 80, right? Like it doesn't work in your favor unless you're truly living it, and you get to be present and be available to the ones that matter to you, and have meaningful conversation and just call and say hello. And you've truly got something that is irreplaceable, the most valuable thing. You're using your time to make yourself valuable. So with this little life that I have, I try to maximize my time. So yes, I call my friends and say, "How are you doing?" Because maybe if I was making $200,000 a year, I wouldn't have the luxury to say, "Hey, how are you doing? How are your kids?" Oh yeah, like by the way, I'll be at the birthday party this weekend. Maybe that wouldn't have been a possibility, but with this life that I have, I get to do that. Oh, let me just request some time off, and yeah, me and you we can definitely go on a trip next week. Like I love that. Living life is a beautiful thing. But what also makes it special is living life with the ones you truly love and care about. Place value on that. I think, and I always say this, I really do think that no matter what I've accomplished in life, it will not ever outshine the birth of my children. That is just to me my greatest accomplishment. And if that's my greatest accomplishment and the thing that I value the most, it's all I ever want to do is just give them not what I didn't have financially, but to give them all that I have emotionally, spiritually, mentally. I want my children to be good human beings. And I can't determine who they become in the end, but I would like to be a force for good in their lives. And the only way I can do that is by investing my time in them. Something that money can't possibly really give me. The people go, "Oh yeah, the money, you know what money will do? Money will give you freedom so you can spend more time with your family." It's like, "No. Like no. It doesn't actually do that." I mean, you could go to a country that is not as developed and not as affluent as the United States, and you know what? Those people are happy. They live with their family, they enjoy their family's, company. They're a part of every activity that their family is a part of. And in America, you can have a bunch of people living in the same house and everyone could be making six figures or more, but no one has time for each other. So when are they going to have time for each other? When they retire? You know, I think that's just so jarring that we chase the things that we already have. You'll have someone that says, "Man, like I wish that I had love," and like love is right in front of them, right? They're just closed off to it because their idea of what they think they want and what they actually want are not the same thing. And you have to be humble enough to realize that the things that are marketed to us are exactly that. It's just marketing. You think that, oh, if I have $200,000, like yes, this life is fancy or whatever, but it's nothing. The $80,000 life is beautiful too. The $60,000 life is beautiful too. It's what you do with the money. It's not how much you make, it's how much is left. Kind of like that. It's not how much you make, it's how much you left. And just like with anything else, if we value our time and if time is scarce, it's also good to make yourself scarce to certain people as well. The people who, are going to say things to you in a nice way, but it's really just a double handed, backhanded compliment or however people want to phrase it. Those people are never good. And also, we don't always have to play on their terms and react in the way that they think we're going to react. While, of course, in the guise of, oh, it's because I care about you. That's why I'm saying these things. When someone says something out of love, even when it makes us unhappy, we still can feel the love. So I told one of my friends that in the next episode that I record, I was going to tell the story that changed my life and my way of thinking. When I was in college, I was watching a TED Talk, and it was of this renowned college professor that when she attended Harvard, she was in a tragic car accident and she'd lost her motor skills, so she couldn't speak the same way that she did before. She couldn't walk or really function. She had to move back home with her parents, and her parents had to take care of her while she went through rehabilitation. So she eventually did regain all of her motor functions. She could eat on her own, talk on her own, dress herself. And the whole story was that after her accident, she became depressed and she lost her will to live. The moment that she could walk again and had regained most of her oral skills, she she decided to jump back into college, and she did not do well because she didn't take the time to learn who the new her was, and that she had a mental strain in computing information. The way she understood information prior to her car accident was not the same after her car accident. So she became, furious. She became extremely depressed because she wasn't the person that she was before, and she wanted to function exactly how she did it before. And she was at a loss and she was in a very dark moment. And someone, I believe it was her college professor at the time, said, "Don't fake it till you make it. Fake it till you become it." So you're not that person that you were before, and you'll never be that person again because you had a new experience that changed the person that you are. And that's a beautiful thing. So if you've told yourself that you were worthless, if you've told yourself that you are not valuable, you've told yourself that you'll never amount to anything, if you've ever told yourself that, that was obviously a lie. And you've programmed yourself to believe those things, right? That wasn't true. And then maybe you did things that made them true. So if you can do that, if you can lie to yourself that way, why can't you fake it till you become it? Why can't you lie to yourself that you're an amazing person, that you're a person that can achieve anything? Why can't you tell yourself those same things to make them true? If you think it, you can become it. I love that quote. I think, therefore I am. And so whenever I find myself not knowing something or trying to accomplish something new, I go back to that memory of you don't fake it till you make it. You fake it until you become it. If someone, if I were to say that was not bothered by the comment that was made or the underline, jab that was with that comment, that'd be a lie. But I faked it and I killed that person with kindness because I wasn't gonna let someone that I didn't value have that power over me. And as my day went on, I gradually became happy that I had that experience because I confronted it. And I didn't confront it on the terms that they thought I would have. I confronted it on my terms, which was kindness. Kindness is something that's taken for granted today. We don't always have to respond the way that people expect us to respond. I often find the greatest victories are when you react and respond with peace. So you get to choose your trajectory. Do you let the words of other people determine the direction of which you go? Or do you take your power back and you don't fake it till you make it? You fake it till you become it. Thank you so much for listening.
Be free.
Wounds and where they came from. So many of us carry invisible scars. Who inflicted them upon us? And how do they dictate how? There's so many origin stories for the wounds that we carry, the invisible wounds that we carry, whether it be from our family, relationships, friendships, or just our interactions with the world around us. Maybe it was the first time we didn't make the volleyball team and we suffered loss, and how we recovered from that loss or lack of recovering from it. That determined how we now perceive the world around us. So I volunteer on Mondays. And this past Monday, I was able to teach a course. And the lesson of the course was be mindful of how you treat those around you. And I asked everyone to raise their hand and show how many of these individuals, when they were growing up, did their parents build them up, tell them that they could achieve anything in life, that no matter what, they were supported and that they were loved. And everyone in that room rose their hand. Whether it was true or not, their hand was still rose. I then said to them, now think of all the people who don't have a support system and they don't have anyone telling them that they can accomplish anything or be all they can be. Now imagine this person's expecting that the world hates them and that they'll never amount to anything. That's what they're expecting. Now imagine you tell that person one day that they did a great job. How would that change the trajectory of their future? By you being the first person to tell them that they can be whatever it is that they decide to be. I then asked them, conversely,
What if the same person that gets torn down every single day by the ones closest to them were to venture out into the world and you see this person and you say to them, "You suck. You're not good at this. You're not smart. You're dumb." How would that alter the trajectory of their day? How? How do you know if your words have impact? You don't. Which is why it's important to be kind and to always be mindful of the things that we say. Choose to build people up instead of tearing them down. Here's something that people may take or consider to be corny. There's a saying that hurt people hurt people. And if that's the case, then we can only heal people by choosing to do right and be good. Of course, that's a tough task to tackle. So by choosing to build people up and to invest in them, that's a way to diminish some of the hurt in this world. And by doing so, we will heal people, and healed people will heal other people as well. Because what we put out, we shall receive. You know, I'm not perfect. I remember a while back, my boss brought me to their office and they were telling me that, hey, you're doing a great job. You're confident and that's great and you're doing amazing things. But remember, when you're at your highest point, you are the most vulnerable because you can fall. Everyone's coming at you. But most importantly, you have to be self-aware in those moments. And at the time I thought, man, well, they're being annoying. If I'm doing a good job, just say that I'm doing a good job. In retrospect, though, I see the value in which they were trying to instill within me in that moment. And the value was, when you're accomplishing a lot of things, everything's moving fast, nothing's slowing down, and maybe you're not looking at where you're stepping. Maybe you're burning bridges in the process of you being successful. Maybe that confidence turns to arrogance. Maybe I'm being braggadocious. Maybe, I'm neglecting, those that are in my charge. And that warning at the time was some of the best advice I've ever received in my professional career, because it grounded me to be a humble leader. Because in dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, I have to constantly check my emotions at the door is the first thing. And secondly, be aware of emotions. In this day and age, it's not just about it being an effective leader professionally in the sense that you know your business. You have to be an effective leader that knows and understands your people. Know their motivations. Know them as people. Because if you don't, and you neglect them, you will walk into a situation in which you have no one. So my goal as a leader is to not either open up wounds that have healed or to inflict wounds on others. I was told that we, in the professional environment, we all have someone to return to at the end of our workday, whether it be friends, whether it be a pet, whether it be your parents, or Santa Claus. We all have someone or something to return to at the end of the day. And when a person clocks out for the day, what do you want them to bring with them on their way out? Do you want them to bring the stress of, man, my boss is a jerk. My boss doesn't care about me as a person. My boss only talks about themselves. My boss never listens to my ideas or what I have to say. Or, my boss is a good person. My boss cares. My boss wants to see me succeed. Are those things not valuable? To know that as much as we'd like to think that we don't take work home with us, we do take work home with us. Because we're people, we have emotions. And while we may not be in control of what we feel, we can always control what we say. So, our impact matters because the invisible wounds are what people take home with them. And now they're lashing out on their significant others or their children or their pets because maybe they're afraid that they can't offer a rebuttal in fear of retaliation. Or maybe they can't voice their opinions because maybe they see some chink in our armor. Maybe that's what they see. But they hold it inside. They hold on to it in fear of, if I speak out, I'm going to be shut down, or I'm going to be rejected, or I'll get fired, or I'll be bullied. And when they go home to their space, their safe space, now they're letting out that raging beast that has been repressed and is starving and is just waiting to just, pounce on the first thing that moves. So our words matter. And how they affect those around us matters too. So you could either be a force that... Here's some words of advice. If you are a parent, be your child's number one cheerleader. The best thing you could ever do for your child, outside of providing them shelter and food, is being their cheerleader. Building up their self-esteem and their self-worth. A person that is secure in themselves and knows their self-worth is not going to go out into the world and inflict damage onto the world. They will seek to fill the void and the gaps in the world, in their environment. However, a person that does not feel adequate, a person that is insecure, only seeks to bring destruction to everything around them and everyone around them. To tear down those who are happy, to diminish their worth and their value, to make them feel the same hurt that has been inflicted upon them. So the best thing you can do for your child if you want them to be successful is to build them up. Speak words of encouragement and inspire them to be the best that they can be, to be the better, not the better version of you, but the best version of themselves. Let your ceiling, meaning all that you've accomplished in life, all that you've learned in life, all that you consider to be a part of who you are as a person, that all of that, your ceiling, be your child's floor. So create a world for them that would be their floor. So the more that you build them up, and the more you're built up as a person, the higher they will climb. I think that's the best analogy. The higher they will climb. But first, you have to build yourself up. Because if you're not built up, you can't build them up. So you have to be good to yourself, love yourself so then you can build them up, and you can show them the love they truly deserve. So if you want to avoid generational curses, if you want to avoid not seeing your kid be the best human being they can be, build them up, encourage them. Show them love. Sure, the world can be a harsh place. You know, but a confident person can overcome any challenge. Or they'll tackle any problem because they're confident. It doesn't matter if the world is hard. What matters is that they believe they can accomplish anything in spite of the world being hard. You don't have to show them bad things. The world's going to show them that every single day they're alive. But if you equip them with a tool of believing in themselves, imagine what they can accomplish in spite of all the negative that's out there. So here's some advice for relationships. Think about the concept of being honest. It's not the truth that hurts, it's the lie. See, the revelation of the truth means that there was a lie. Here's what I mean. If you know in your heart that you do not share the same feelings as someone that you're involved with, and you know that that relationship has an expiration date, you know that this is not forever, and this person is not your forever. Be upfront. Be upfront before you plant the seeds of hope. Be upfront before you plant the seeds of dreams and the seeds of a future. Because while you're planting those seeds, that person's watering them, hoping they'll grow. And when it's revealed that you weren't being truthful, because you come through with your lawnmower and you tear down all the plants that sprouted because of the lies that were told, because you strung someone along, now that person's heart is in chaos because of that lie. Words have power. And sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones that are invisible. See, the heartbreak you endure because of a lie that you were living may alter the course of someone's trajectory. Now this person has trust issues. Now this person thinks that every person that is kind is stringing them along or feeding them false hope. If you do not intend to be good, or better yet, if you do not intend to live up to someone's expectations of a relationship, let them know so that you're on the same page. The worst that can happen is things just don't work out. However, the saying goes, no harm, no foul. If you're communicating with someone honestly, even if things go wrong, guess what? At least you were in a situation in which things were built on trust. And if there's trust, there's understanding. If there's understanding, sure, things will hurt a little bit because maybe that person's not in your life, but guess what? Because it wasn't meant to be. But you could always be friends. You could always have some form of platonic relationship if that's the case. Or maybe the relationship wasn't right now, but maybe it's right 5 years from now. But because it was built on truth, you can then revisit that relationship at a later time, and who knows what it'll blossom into. Now, if the opposite were to have happened, it's built on a lie, sure, you could explore that relationship again, but there will always be the question of what if. There will always be doubt. And doubt and fear are the number one killers of love. So be mindful of the wounds that you inflict with your words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words. So currently at this juncture, I'm working on a book. And the book is finished. I just don't know when it's going to be published. There's a chapter in the book that is titled, Lies Told Are Lies Fed. So if you tell the lie, you have to then sell it. And by selling the lie, you're pushing it down people's throats. So within the chapter of the book, without giving too much away, essentially is that we reach a point in life in which we either let our past hurts dictate how we go through life. Either we decide to overcome that pain, or we decide to succumb to it. And when we succumb to it, we will say that we're okay. We have coping mechanisms, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or whatever, or other toxic relationships, because we're trying to cope with the pain of whatever invisible wounds that we carry with us. And so we feed ourselves lies to tell ourselves that we're okay. Or we try to say, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough, and what was said to me was right. I deserve what's happening to me right now. Sometimes the worst part about being a victim is that you turn yourself into the villain. You say things like, oh, if I was more like this, then that person wouldn't have said this to me. Or if I did this, then that person wouldn't have done this to me. I deserve the bad things that are happening to me, which is the lies told are the lies we feed ourselves. I just want to say that you deserve more than that. You are better than that. We are better than that. We are more than the negative crap that gets shoved down our face each day. I'm sorry, down our throats. We're more than that. You can be all that you can be, or you can choose not to be. If you choose not to be, let it be the reason that you just don't want to explore that option. But never be hindered by the negative words of others, because that's a life filled with regrets. My personal story is this. There's so many people that I've invested my time in that, were like, oh, I'll be your mentor. And, you go down that path of mentor, mentee, relationship. And this person, they build you up, kind of. They tell you that, oh, you're doing great, but, you're being used in the process of this. And so they'll say, oh, you're doing this thing great. But one day you'll get to be as great as I am, or whatever. But you don't realize that you're being exploited, and for them to exploit you, they have to constantly diminish your worth. So for everything that you do right, they'll tell you a major thing that it's not that they're telling you that you're not good at what you're doing. They attack you, the person, and saying that, oh man, maybe you should be better at this, because they know that they're using you for a season, and they're going to use you and milk you for all that you can give. And when they go down that path, they realize that they have to make you insecure. So that way you will always want to please them, to make them happy. And so you respect these people sometimes, or you love them in many cases so much that you think they're coming from a place of love, and that they only want what's best for you, and they're being critical because they know what's in your best interest. But that's not what they're doing. They're not building you up. They're tearing you down and stringing you along. There's a saying, constructive criticism constructs, meaning it builds up, and criticism for criticism's sake tears you down. So recognize the difference in if someone is building you up or if they're tearing you down. Because once that transactional relationship is over and they've taken all that they can take, now you're the one left picking up the pieces of trust that you once held, and you realize that you were used. Yeah, you're the one that's depressed because you've lost faith in humanity. But it's also good to note that a lot of times when things are not good for you, you feel it in your gut. Something in your heart already tells you that this thing is not right. In recent, I would say in the past 3 years, I've learned a lot about myself. And I'm growing into the next stage of my life, the next season of me. One of the things that I've recently been doing is learning to say no. That's the best thing that I've ever practiced, learning to say no. I would just constantly say yes to everything and everyone, and I'd run myself dry. And now I don't do that anymore. That's a relief. Now I'm in the season of saying yes to myself. Yes, I deserve more rest. Yes, I deserve to get a massage every once in a while. Yes, I deserve to go to therapy and work on myself, go to the gym and work on myself. Take time to prepare an amazing meal. If it takes me 12 hours to prepare it, then that's 12 hours invested in myself. This is the season of self for me. Sometimes you have to be selfish so that you can be selfless. Meaning you have to take time to build yourself up, reinvigorate and re-energize your batteries so that you can give to others. You can't give emotionally, physically, without an end. So you have to slow down to build up your reserves once more. And that's what I've been doing lately. And now I have more energy. My thoughts are clear. I'm having less funks in life. I'm more positive than I've ever been before, and I've always thought of myself as a positive person, but I've learned that, yeah, I'm positive because I'm giving so much, but then I go home and I feel depleted every day. And now I don't. I don't have that feeling. I don't experience that anymore. I'm not letting the negative words of others dictate my trajectory, because what is for me will always be for me, with or without them. Whether they be my kin, whether they be my friends or mentor. What is for me is for me. It's destined for me because I'm going to work towards whatever it is that my goals are, my passion. I'll work endlessly to see my passions materialize. No one can take that away because I don't give them the power to. Because now is the season of me. You should say that to yourself. Now is the season of me. I have to be selfish so that I can be selfless. I came to this conclusion because I was tired of people constantly doubting me and instilling doubt within my mind because I gave them that power to do so. Every time I would try to accomplish something, I was told my goals were too big. I should be more conservative with my ambitions. And for a while, I accepted it. But guess what? Now is the season of me. It's my season. It's my time. And that is true for you too. You only have right now. Tomorrow isn't promised to you. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So why wouldn't you want to be the best you that you can be right now? Professionally, romantically, intellectually, financially. Why wouldn't you want what's best for you? Why should you be complacent in where you are in order to appease those around you? People are uncomfortable when you dare to be more because they're comfortable with being where they are. And usually that means that if you dare to be more, they take it as a threat that you're going to surpass them. That's not your problem. That's theirs. You should always want others around you to be successful. You should always cheer people on for wanting to be better. You should always cheer for people who want to be more self-confident. You should always cheer for. In fact, you should foster and grow that in people. If your friend's starting a business, be the first person to support them. Tell them they can do it. If they can't cook, refer them to a YouTube channel that teaches them how to cook. Build their confidence up. Anyone who's my friend is like family to me. And because they're family, I'm going to always tell them that they can do more. They can do better. I'll tell them that they are it. They have the it factor. And if they can't sing, I'm still going to show up to that concert anyway. You know why? Because it's my friend. I'm still going to show support. All we have in this life is not our cars or house or our finances. We don't have that. Uncle Sam can take those things away from us. The love that you have for someone else, if it's true love, it cannot be taken away. If it's true love, it cannot be relinquished. So now is the season of you. It is my season. It's your season. It's our season. So while others may doubt you and tell you, oh, don't aim that high. Don't try to be more. Well, guess what? When I transferred colleges, I had a 3.5 GPA, right? I never talk about this, let alone putting it out into the world. And I was speaking to my academic advisor and I said, I want to graduate, you know, in the top 10, something along those lines. I want to graduate like with honors, and not just basic honors. I wanted to aim high. And this person looked at me and said, "Oh, I think you're aiming, a little too high." Now imagine that. This person is supposed to be an academic advisor. Like I said, I have a 3.5 GPA at the time, 3.6. And I just want to shift the scale, say 2 points, 3.8 or what have you. And they're telling me that it's basically impossible. You'd have to make straight A's to make this happen. And I said, okay. And what's wrong with that? And it's not a ridiculously unbelievable feat, right? Because if I was a 2.0 student, sure, it would be hard, but not impossible. Excuse me. And I want to move from a 3.5, 3.6 to a 3.8. And this person was trying to instill doubt within me. You know why? Not because it was an unachievable goal for me, it's because it was an unachievable goal for them. So people will tear you down because they can't accomplish something. They don't even encourage you to try to accomplish it. They don't tell you how they failed and how you can succeed. So they naturally don't encourage you, don't build you up because of their insecurities. So if you're a parent, build up your children. If you're a friend, inspire your friend, encourage your friend. And whatever seeds of inspiration or encouragement that you plant, you will get to reap them one day. Because maybe you're at your low point and now your friend can offer you encouragement. And where there was doubt, now you have inspiration. Where there was fear, now you have hope. Because you showed them the way. You showed them how to light their path. And maybe one day that same person will light yours. You can't build success from nothing. You have to build it from something. The saying goes, it takes money to make money. Well, guess what? It also takes calories to burn calories too. So the saying is true. In order to get a return, you must first invest. And if people aren't investing in you, they're taking from you. They're tearing you down. And you will not give them that power anymore to do that. It is your life. It is your season. It is your time. Be all that you can be. And whatever wounds others have inflicted on you, they will heal. As a wonderful human being once said to me when I was going through a tough time, "My child, this too shall pass." And those words, I never thought I would say them to someone else. But when my friend was going through a breakup, I remember it was either my second to last semester of college, and I had this friend that had a girlfriend for the very first time, and he called me over to his dorm, and he's crying. He'd never experienced heartbreak before. He said, "You've had a girlfriend before. What did you do to stop the pain?" And I looked him in the eye, and I said, "This too shall pass. Every day that you're alive, it will hurt a little bit less. Until one day, just like you hitting your head, on something, the pain will just go away with time. With time, anything can pass." The wounds inflicted by others, it's not your burden to carry. It's not your pain to have. Be free. If this podcast challenged you, good. Clarity often does. The point here isn't consensus or reassurance. It's to leave you more precise than when you arrived. Keep what sharpens your thinking. Discard the rest. But don't confuse familiarity with truth. If this conversation mattered, follow the podcast and share it selectively with people who value depth and not noise. Until next time, stay disciplined with your thinking, selective with your attention, and honest about what you're really optimizing for.